Everybody, if you're seeing me, I'm a little bit early, and I'm looking to see what's happening, whether we're online or not. If you want to put a little comment in the live stream box. Yeah, we're on.
All right.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
So if you want to, tonight, hi, I'm Yudrin Wangmo, and our topic, what's the topic for today? What did I say? Grab this chance while you can. So this falls under the category, like there's all this technical language in Buddhism, and there's this kind of term of precious human birth. Like the first meditation you do as a new Buddhist is to meditate on the preciousness of being human. And my guest here is Nina Schilling.
Hi.
Who's a wonderful practitioner, come closer to the mic,
Okay.
wonderful practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism. Many years, very in-depth practitioner who I really respect a lot. And Nina and I have been at a retreat for 3 days in the same house. This is called Nakchon Gatsel. Oh yeah, we're looking at ourselves. Remember, let's look at the green dot.
Okay.
And Nakchon Gatsel, it means Happy Garden of Practitioners in Oakland, California. And it's actually my house. It has a shrine room. And we've had lots of people crowded in doing a traditional Tibetan Buddhist retreat. And then other people joining us online through Zoom. So we've done how many hours of meditation? Countless, probably 10 a day or something.
Yeah, maybe a little less than that.
A little 8 a day.
Yeah.
So eight hours a day for 3 days. So we should be really good practitioners by now. Are you good?
I'm good. I'm good to be sitting back and talking right now, just having a little break. It's wonderful.
All right, great. Mm-hmm. Well, when you get online, folks, I'm not sure if anybody's watching because this isn't my usual. There's one. This isn't my usual time, so we're pushing a little late because of that retreat. Mm-hmm. So I want to, though, feel free to jump on to the live chat and just give us a shout out. Our topic is, actually, before we get into the topic, why don't we just, last week, I'm not going to do the whole, review that I did last time. But last week where we left off was that we discussed what the three jewels are, the 3 roots, what it means to take refuge. And over the last few weeks we've done this. And a little bit about the Bodhicitta, the mind of awakening and great compassion, joined with non-conceptual wisdom. And this great wish to bring all beings equally into enlightenment, all by ourselves alone. And so have this great intention, great strength and confidence. So we're going to sing those verses, and you'll see both. I put it both in the comments section and in the description of today's video that Amitabha says great bliss pure land practice. If it says Amitabha and then more, or click here, like more, click that little blue thing, and you'll be able to sing along with us as we take refuge and generate bodhicitta. And we're just going to stop there, and then we're going to do some meditation. I'll introduce the meditation. Okay? Homage, the 3 precious jewels and the 3 roots. I go for refuge to these zones of refuge. I spark the bodhicitta as supreme awakening, so I may place all beings in enlightenment. So now is our first meditation. We're gonna, same time, you guys out there, whether you're watching on replay or live with us, or someone out there watching live with us right now, look at the pick an object. Today's object is a green pen. And for me anyway, Nina, what would you like? Keys or a mousetrap? A peaceful mousetrap.
Sure.
Oh, I know. This is really great.
Perfect.
Lori often watches, and Lori gave me that. Little snowflake. So
beautiful.
What we do when we're feeling jazzed up, and Nina and I are actually probably pretty tired, but it is... but most people are kind of jacked up from our days. is to bring our attention a little bit down, and you look at a spot out here, a little bit of distance in front of yourself in space, usually. But in this case, we're going to actually focus on an object. So your space is going to be this pen or whatever your object is. And this is a great grounding meditation. Really, when maybe it's just too much to get to anything too abstract going on, to use a physical object and bring your attention back to it gently, again and again. Say you're trying to put a little kid in a snowsuit, and you started. You got one arm in for the snowsuit top, and you want to put that other arm in, but the kid is already looking around, going, Look at the fire truck. And then what do you say? No, bad, scold the child and go, you're so bad looking at that fire truck. No, it's normal for a kid to be distracted and look at fire trucks, right? So it's normal for us to be distracted in our day, unfortunately, all too normal. So we want to bring gently, like you would that little kid, say, oh, okay, Jeffy, bring your arm up. Bring your arm up, Okay, okay, Udrani. Bring your attention back to the pen. Be gentle with yourself. Does that sound good to you?
Gentle is great.
Gentle is great.
It's the key. It's the key.
It's the key.
That's how you can really relax and just settle in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just do that for a few minutes to settle down, friends. And we're gonna look downward at this object. Okay. So that's shamatha. It's called peace, calming, really calming meditation on a physical object.
Mm-hmm.
Our sort of theme here, Nina, is these are scary times. You know, we have environmental catastrophes and all kinds of things going on in the world, and everybody has their own personal go-to emotional states that they settle in,
Right.
you know, so everybody's different. But we have a commonality in that things are very, with a lot of machines in our lives and computers and so forth, everything's faster than they were at any other time in human evolution. What do you think that is there a role to play for this shamatha or calming meditation in this kind of era?
I think it's more and more essential for people to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually not very hard. I think probably in more rural areas it may well happen more normally, more naturally. You know, people are out in the fields and they're tending their flock and there's not much to do. And they just settle in and they settle. And, you know, unless you wander off and daydream, which of course we all do, it's very easy to just naturally come back to your immediate situation. And I think it's crucial. I know for me, when I tell people that before I started practicing about 20 years ago, I was anxious all the time, people look really shocked. Which is nice. It's nice feedback. But I found that starting with that kind of shamatha meditation, that settling on an object, was precious for me. It has been precious.
It
And
completely
it continues to be.
changed my life.
You too?
Yeah, and just that meditation. Now,
Yes.
of course, there is, you know, mindfulness meditation. This is a universal meditation. There's nothing Buddhist about it in particular, except the Buddhists brought it, you know, named it, and then it was Buddhist Americans and Europeans who brought it into sort of Western society as a mindfulness meditation. Yeah. So it doesn't require conversion to Buddhism per se. but
No,
it's-
not
yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know my teacher, who's a great Buddhist teacher, he would always have people from other faiths coming. He had nuns coming.
Yeah.
And I asked them, why are you coming? And they felt that there was so much for them that was useful.
Oh.
I think they felt that Buddhists had a very sophisticated sense of what meditation could do, and they just wanted to pick up some pointers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were I asked them, are you enjoying this retreat? Because it was, you know, very intense. And they said, oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know, that reminds me of Tenzin Palmo,
uh-huh.
Jetsama, right?
Yeah.
So is this wonderful nun who lives in India, and she did
She's English. Yeah.
English. Yeah, she did like 8 years in a snowy cave of meditation in northern Himalayan part of India, and then she went back and she met with monastics in the Christian Catholics in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And they got along really well. And then they asked her to teach meditation.
Oh, wow.
And she said, well, you know, you teach me your meditation.
Mm.
And they didn't, it was kind of at that point, it was kind of a lost tradition, the meditation in their tradition. So they didn't really have much to say to her, as I understand it, at the time. That was, 20 years ago, so probably things may have changed. But anyway, so that's a sort of the framework we're coming at here. That there's really there's nothing else you can do. Well, the choice is beyond drugs, really, because all of us are going to be anxiety-ridden. I mean, do I know anyone who hasn't had a nervous breakdown of something? They may call it different things, or are on medication, self-inflicted or otherwise. No. Do I can't think of any. There must be some like super well-adjusted people. I see people out on the trails, up in the hills. But anyway, most of us don't have any choice. We either have to do some meditation of some form, or prayer, or whatever, or or we just get overwhelmed with emotion. I guess a super intellectuals can detach that way. Anyway, so grab this chance while you can is the title of this week. And we were talking about the advantages for spiritual awakening, for gaining spiritual wisdom, to being human as opposed to some other kind of life form. And in our Western society, we only believe in two really kinds of life forms.
Animals and humans. Yeah.
Animals and humans. If you broaden out animals to include all the, reptiles and arachnids and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
In traditional societies, of course, they have all kinds of invisible beings. So my thought is that I don't give much appreciation or thought to the fact that I have ears, because I've always assumed that that's there. I have a hearing capacity myself. And people who don't have a hearing capacity can read. I have eyes that work, and I have a brain and nervous system that can understand and so forth. And so I can take in sort of transcendent wisdom and teachings that really take me beyond the superficial in life. And also they give me transcendent. I like that word because it's like everything I do can gain meaning. I mean, for me, it's Buddhist teachings, particularly these, really high mountain, high level Tibetan teachings, right? But I love this Bodhisattva path as well. It gives me a purpose in life. It gives me something that transcends the ups and downs and so forth. So, and all that comes from my human capacity. But do you think there's really a difference between a human, like what does a human have that other life forms don't have? We love our animals.
Right. Well, just from my observation, it seems to me that animals, just like for instance from having cats, cats have a great capacity for having different kinds of emotions, and they can reflect on situations and adapt to situations. So this is all great. One of the things that's obvious is they don't have a kind of sophisticated language, it seems, that we have. And also I have the impression that they don't have the kind of discernment that humans have the capacity for, to understand, to think of another situation, compare it to this situation, and then also just go within and say, what's happening? Is there something missing in my life, for instance? I think a lot of us has come to that point in our lives. There's something missing. What is it? I doubt that most animals can do that, if maybe none of them can. And so this ability to reflect consciously on our experience, to me, is what is so precious. Having lived with animals and just seen, or heard about situations that animals are in, I feel often that they're so trapped in a very limited framework, which doesn't say that they don't have feelings the way we do. My sense is that animals feel things extremely deeply, and people I know who have lived around animals, farmers and so on, that really observe them say they definitely have. One friend who was a farmer had horses, and one of his horses just stopped in the middle of this brilliant expanse of land and just stopped and looked around, and he couldn't get the horse to move. So this really suggests, unlike what many people feel is that animals are just dumb, that many animals have a very similar capacity to experience happiness and sorrow, joy, all kinds of emotions. But they don't have, first, the ability to have a sophisticated language with us, to communicate with each other. They probably have other kinds of communication, but mainly this inability to reflect on their situation and to make choices that are have a lot of discernment. This seems like what animals don't really have. To that degree.
My mind keeps going as you're talking, going back to the traditional Tibetan teachings on this topic of human birth. It seems if you don't have a framework of, like in our society, we don't necessarily believe in rebirth, reincarnation, this kind of thing, or any sort of afterlife. Actually, maybe some people believe in heaven or hell and forever. So it's kind of ludicrous to talk about any other, animal versus a human birth, because you're not an animal and you're never going to be an animal, But I wonder, if the person watching or anybody afterwards wants to leave comments. I think comments become disabled afterwards. So anyway, I'm wondering, if you're watching, do you believe in some kind of life after death? Have you had, these kind of things are not verifiable by science at this point. Although there are some, Mr. Moody at University of Virginia, I believe, wrote a series of books recording past life. Was it Raymond Moody or was it someone else?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, there's are scientific studies out there about people who recall past lives, and then evidence emerges that there was such a person that lives in such and such a place, very clearly linked.
That was actually one of the most impressive books I ever read. I was in the 5th grade. I forget what it was called. The Case of Bridie Murphy, maybe.
Oh.
And it was mind-blowing to me, because here was someone who remembered what the bedpost looked like in a bedroom of a life she's never experienced in this life. And then I think they did, there was evidence to suggest that she was remembering something that they could find.
My mom was a very spiritual woman. She was actually a minister of a spiritual science group. And but even she, at the end of her life, near the end of her life, told me that she really only believed her own experience. Like she had spiritual experiences, for example, verifying or disproving, I guess you could have it. I haven't seen that. Some post-death existence. She really only believed her own experience. Which is really interesting to hear from this very, she'd been to see all the great spiritual teachers, from the Dalai Lama and Karmapa to Ram Dass and all kinds, from every tradition, the Sufis and so forth. But when it came down to it, she just, she had a few seminal experiences in her life that gave her faith in something beyond this physical reality. So, I don't know whether if you've had experience like that and you want to put it in the comments section.
That's a great question. That's very interesting.
Or you haven't and you think it's a bunk. Please put it there. We only have one person watching, so that is unlikely. But anyway, or you can drop me a line and we can talk about it next week. I have, but I don't even think I'm going to go into it because Mom. Mom said she just doesn't believe other people's experience. I have communicated, and you see the eyes, kind of glaze over, and so I think these kind of things are kind of things you keep inside.
Right. Because without a context, it's just
It's just like
fantasy.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would believe that. But anyway, so I feel quite confident in a post-death experience and rebirth. It may be, to me, I don't have verification, personal experience of it being really literal. Like at the moment of your death, or in the 49 days, you're literally
reborn
in some other body. It's not you either in the Buddhist tradition. Hindu tradition is very much like a soul going from life to life. But in our tradition, it's like in a way we're birthed. Our experience in this body was birthed by our mental habits and emotional habits, and when we pass away, whatever our emotional habits that are running at that moment kind of regenerate into an experience of being some kind of organism unless you awaken completely.
In other words, you have the tendency to keep thinking the same way.
Yeah, or maybe it's changed, maybe it's gotten worse, maybe it's gotten better in this life, you know?
Yeah.
And it sort of ripens later into a different kind of rebirth. So let's do a little bit of meditation on the breath. This one, same principle, right? You notice how Nina and I, right away, we go like this. And we want to have a straight spine. So this is the habits of meditators. We're not great, athletes, but we do like to have our straight spine. And it does make the mind clearer and more settled. So please focus on your breath this time. A typical format for this, as we've addressed in previous weeks, is to focus on the place where you feel your out-breath. So you might feel your out-breath right here at your lips, or a little beyond your lips. You might feel your out. You can breathe out through your nose and your mouth to wherever you feel comfortable. You might feel it more in the nose, like the cold sensation of air going through your nose. Some people, it's really lung-centered, and all that's okay. But a lot of people like this feeling of the breath going out from the mouth and mixing with the air. There's a sense of dispersion there that brings a sense of opening, a sense of sky or space in a little bit, just a little bit. And then as your mind wanders, same as with the baby snowsuit, bring it back gently to your breath again. And your mind will wander, or my mind will wander. So let's just give that a try. Let's begin. Hello, friends. Okay. So a good observation there. We had my roommate come back from not knowing that I was broadcasting this late at night, and we have that's life, Noise happens. We aren't trying to, in this Buddhist tradition, perhaps more than others, we aren't really trying to block out or control other people.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. So.
The focus is more on what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't, there's less blaming other people. There's more personal responsibility. And I wouldn't always ignore him when he says hello, friends. It's not like you have to not say hello, friends back. It's okay, but he gets it once once we don't respond. So that's good news, because you don't need to feel like you have to be into a soundproof booth. That everything has to be super quiet. You can't have pets or children or anybody in your life. It's it's very, very serious, uninterruptible.
I think I learned my first meditation was, I grew up in New York City, and for 7 years going to high school and college, I spent an hour each way on mass transportation.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, I'm just going to do my homework. And in the midst of this really a hubbub of people everywhere, I just learned that I could focus my attention. So I think that, we have all these opportunities in our life to realize that. It's my own impression. Because sometimes, actually, I like to go to a place like a cafe, because I love going to the cafe. And I'm thinking, well, I want to do another practice, but I really want to go to the cafe. So I've decided I'll just take this practice. It's a text, which I can do silently to myself, or chant it very low under my breath. And I find that I love that. In a way, it kind of puts me right in the midst of, this is just me speaking, other people have different temperament, puts me in the middle of life, and I have this practice to do, which really changes what my experience would be like if I didn't have it, I've noticed. There's more, that's not always the case, but in general, it gives a real richness to my experience.
Yeah, I've definitely done the same thing. My one of my teachers was named Amitabha, and he used to live in India. And he, when he felt that his practice was getting kind of dull and sinking quality, he would go to the Indian train station. The Indian train station that he was referring to anyway was like a zoo. I'm not referring to people as animals here, but you get the idea, like very energetic, chaotic things happening all the time, noisy, smelly, it's a very hub of like going to Times Square.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think most people have been to New York in the U.S. So the only topic I think we need to touch before we go to our final meditation, Nina La is an affectionate term, is the precious part.
Yeah.
Some people have lives where they can practice and really devote themselves to spiritual studies in extreme depth. And then there's people who have zero leisure time, not even that ride on the bus or the train to from Long Island to New York City or whatever.
Or
the Bronx. And then there's most of us who fall in between the two extremes.
Yeah.
So there's even within the human, even if here we put it, in terms of people who believe in rebirth. I apologize to those of you who don't. We have the good fortune to be born human, have all our faculties about are enough in our society so we can take in wisdom teachings and practice them. And in that insight that you talked about, the looking within, making choices, finding empty spots that feel some kind of purposelessness and trying to get a purpose and all these kinds of things. But there are people who have a little bit of time to practice, and what does practice mean?
So that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking me or
Well,
asking
good.
everyone?
And what does practice mean?
Well, to practice means a few different things. It means sitting down formally, taking out a text, or remembering an instruction that my teacher gave me and then applying it. It may not be a thing that requires, making sounds, visualizing, anything like that. It may just be a way of settling into my own experience without a lot of content, other than that. And
I'm thinking of contemplation. For example, there's a book called The Way of the Bodhisattva.
yeah,
And anybody could be, it was written 1,000 years ago, and it's as fresh as a daisy. Now, most parts of it are. There's few little paragraphs here and there with dated, and actually they may not be from the original text. They may have been added in. But it's certainly, so you take a line, you read like a sentence, and then you contemplate it.
yeah.
And then you rest, maybe in a kind of like this kind of an open meditation. And then maybe you read the same one again and kind of rest. So it's not like reading a book for entertainment.
No. I see what you're talking about. Yeah, definitely.
It's bringing it into your experience more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different forms of practice. The thing about our Tibetan tradition is that they took what were a few practices in general Buddhism, and then they multiplied it into millions of practices, different specific practices.
Yeah, it's true.
They can be lumped into categories and so forth. But anyway, so some people, I would say most Americans have a little bit of time each day.
Yes, I think that's
to
true.
do something like that.
That's true. That's really true. In fact, I know friends of mine who had children, young children, and they really wanted to do meditation. And a lot of the time, if the child was old enough, the child would just get involved in some way. They found some ingenious way to involve them, and the child would sit there and do their little form of meditation and really seemed to enjoy. The feedback I got from people was that the children just enjoyed being able to be with their parents when their parents were settled, relaxed. Something about the vibe of that, the feeling of that they really enjoyed. And then maybe they would give them, like children love to imitate their parents. So, if I have this little mala, this bracelet, I would give my child one like this, and then they could play with it. They would imitate. Actually, one of the friends that we just did some meditation with, she has a child who does this one mantra. She heard her mother do it. So it's a repetition of sounds that invokes a certain quality of enlightened mind. And she just loves to do it. So she sits there when her mother is practicing meditation, and she does it herself.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to get children involved in this kind of thing.
Great.
Yeah.
And also a lot of times we're caring for elders, or we are an elder.
Yeah.
And there's space
in
in
that.
that. Everybody wants to be. Don't you want to be around someone who's loving, peaceful, kind, patient? Don't you want to be someone like that? It takes a lot of training, because we get so wrapped up in our own thoughts and so tight.
Yeah.
So I think, Nina, you've been so kind to stay when we're both, tired at the end of our long, long day. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
We're gonna end with a meditation on this big red Buddha, Amitabha, and Buddhas of infinite light. And as a visualization front, just picture, any kind of Buddha image, and cross-legged, meditating Buddha. He's got a bowl in his cupped hands, in one on top of the other, and sitting straight, nice, meditate. I'm leaning because I want to talk into the microphone, but he's sitting nice. And he's in front. He's flanked by a couple of almost Buddhas. The another image, it's very interesting actually, this practice from the Namcha cycle, has on Buddha's right, on Buddha Amitabha's right, is another Avalokiteshvara. Is Avalokiteshvara the Bodhisattva, and pictured as a standing,
Yeah.
and then you are Chenrezig, who is also the Bodhisattva.
So you're all of those. You're the Buddha, and you're also that, or you're Avalokiteshvara.
I'm saying you are Avalokiteshvara.
Oh, okay.
You're self-visualizing as the Buddha Avalokiteshvara, like Sambhogakaya. I'm putting in technical terminology, like in a visionary form. And then in front you see Buddha Amitabha, and to his right is the same compassionate bodhisattva energy depicted as a standing humanoid form. Human form of Avalokiteshvara. So, and to the left of Buddha Amitabha is Vajrapani, who's a human form bodhisattva, who was, did you know that they drew a parallel along the Silk Road between Hercules and Vajrapani? Vajrapani was the protector and a kind of a strongman kind of figure, taking up this Buddha Amitabha's keeping an eye out. Anyway, he embodies strength and so in power. So they're standing beside them.
And Avalokiteshvara is this white Buddha who embodies more like the compassion of all Buddhas. Is that right?
Ourself is that.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just think you are on the path, very far along on the path of awakening, and you're white, and you have 4 arms, and you're seated in meditation posture. In front of you is this red Buddha, and he's flanked by his best students. And then we're going to, so the way this is structured is we take refuge and generate Bodhicitta like we did at the beginning, this mind of awakening. And then the visualization is recited, sung, and then we say Amidewa Hri, which is the name mantra of Amitabha. Amidewa is Amitabha. And then the visualization, as described, melts into yourself and then into light and emptiness mixed, and then you rest there for a short time. Then you reawaken, and then you think, any sort of positive energy that I've generated through this practice, I'm dedicating to all living beings equally, as vast as space.
So you're sharing that, the goodness of that.
Yeah, the goodness. Okay. So let's get ourselves set up here, and then we're going to sing. Homage, the 3 precious jewels and the 3 roots. I go to refuge, to these homes of refuge. I spark the Bodhicitta, supreme awakening, so I may place all beings in enlightenment. The nexus of a pure realm of ecstasy is not other than the world we already know. In this instant I'm a white Bodhisattva, with 1 face, 4 arms, and 2 palms together. In the right hand is a mala, in the left a lotus. I am seated cross-legged on lotus and moon. In front on his own lotus and a moon is a protector, Amitabha, red-complected. 1 face, 2 arms in meditation moo-dra-a. He wears Dharma robes and holds an alms bowl. He is seated in cross-legged posture. To his right is white Avalokiteshvara. To his left is blue Vajrapani. There's an entourage of infinite enlightened ones, Bodhisattvas, hearers, and the worthy ones. Light rays spread from seas at their brows and throats and hearts, invoking wisdom beams from Amitabha's pure land. They dissolve into the scene inseparably. From the heart of Amitabha, from the laddery, lights radiate again, pervading all of space. All beings are cleared of wrongdoing and hindrances, and freed up from debris occurring suffering. Om Mami Dewa Hari, Om Dewa Hari. Om Mami Dewa Hari. In front the transcending conqueror melts into light and then into me. This body of mine dissolves like a sky rainbow, becoming unified emptiness and light. By this merit may I quickly attain the state of refuge, boundless light. May I and living beings, every single one, find our placement on that very ground. Find that placement on that very ground. Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you. And I'll see you guys next week. We'll be back to the normal time at 6 p.m. Monday. See you later. Let me find the off button. Okay, stop. Bye.